So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Rodney Bunner. He is the principal and Transportation Solutions Manager at ServiceEd Solutions, where he specializes in developing transportation-specific software applications, including the FDOT TBEST transit planning software. Rodney received a Bachelor's of Arts in Geography from West Virginia University and a Master's degree in Science in Environmental Studies from Shippensburg University. So with that, Rodney, take it away. Hey, Rodney, don't forget to unmute yourself.
Yep. Sorry about that. Yes. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the FDOT TBEST 5.0 release webinar. My name is Rodney Bunner, and with me today is Tara Bracken from the Florida Department of Transportation Public Transit Office. Tara is the Public Transit Office Planning Manager and has recently taken over as the Project Manager for the TBEST program. And I'll hand it over to Tara to introduce herself.
Everyone, like Rodney said, I work up in central office in the public transit office as the new transit planning manager. Basically, the transit office has worked to develop TBEST specifically for assisting Florida transit agencies with their short-term route planning. One of the big things that I see a lot of agencies using it for is working to develop their TDPs using TBEST as a ridership estimation tool. So I know Rodney's going to talk a lot about that, so I don't want to go too in depth, but we wanted to make sure that this tool was available. It's a freely available tool for all the agencies in Florida. And if you guys ever have any questions, technical support's always available, so you can reach out to Rodney or myself, and I believe our contact information is in the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. So I just want to introduce, why we're having this webinar. FDOT is hosting this to introduce the technology and functional upgrades within TBEST 5 and provide some initial guidance on the new TBEST 5.0 features, the deployment, and how to transition your older data, your TBEST 4.8 data, into TBEST 5. I'll also mention in the coming months that FDOT will be providing in-person and web-based workshops to support Florida agencies in fully utilizing TBEST 5. Right, so let's just take a quick look at today's agenda. We'll introduce TBEST 5. We're going to examine the Florida 2025 data release components. We'll also look at the TBEST 5.0 deployment, which is very different from the TBEST 4.8 and previous versions of TBEST. We'll look at the new tools and features within a live demo, and at the end, we'll follow up with your chat question and answers and any concluding thoughts. So with that, we'll proceed to the next slide. All right, so just as an introduction for those of you that are new to TBEST, it is a transit planning tool developed by FDOT supporting Florida agencies in developing quality data-driven analysis for various transit planning initiatives. As Tara mentioned, strategic transit development plans, or TDPs, are primary use for TBEST. But it also does more operations analysis or service planning analysis, FTA Title VI analysis and reporting, grant proposals, mobility analysis, and many other workflows that support strategic and service planning. So the Florida TBEST program has been in effect and operational for the last 20 years and has been sponsored over that time by the Public Transit Office. All of the information on TBEST, including the software, is available on tbest.org. There are three major areas where FDOT supports the TBEST program. The first is software, and today is a major upgrade for TBEST 5, and we'll talk about the details of that during this webinar. But also during the year and all throughout the program's history, FDOT has routinely released maintenance and updates to TBEST and distributed those out to the user community. FDOT also manages the ridership estimation model that comes with TBEST. They provide a user guide, and TBEST is a free software. It's a public domain software, so anyone can download and use it. And it's available with an ArcGIS ArcGIS Pro license. So that's the only licensing that you'll need, but most everyone has at least some level of licensing for ArcGIS. So it helps to have that available, and we'll use your licensing along with it. So another area of the program is yearly updates of data. So Florida FDOT will prepare for the entire state of Florida, the census, the American Community Survey, the LEHD employment, and the land use data, the parcel land use data for the entire state, as well as updating all of the agency networks and combining those into the TBEST transit systems that they make available for download within TBEST. The third area is outreach. The TBEST website has lots of materials and information on TBEST and what's happening. The user training that I mentioned earlier will be happening soon. We also have video tutorials that are available on the website. And as Tara mentioned, we have Florida user technical support. So all of the agencies and TBEST users that are using TBEST and are active with it, they can call or email to us and to Tara or myself, and we will respond with support with what you're dealing with TBEST, any questions. Okay, so with the new TBEST 5 platform, is a big shift in technology, and it's really the biggest shift is the GIS platform. We are moving away from ArcMap, obviously, and into more of the ArcGIS Pro world, ArcGIS Online world. And we wanted to make sure we supported the next generation of GIS with the proper technology to do all the other things that we wanted to do. So that was the main goal, was to replace the ArcMap technology. Another goal is collaboration. So one of the main points of that is multi-user access. So you're able to connect with team members and those that are on a project with you. All of you might be working on TBEST together. You can access the same set of data in a workspace environment. We also wanted to make data available via the cloud. And so we've integrated with ArcGIS Online to push data out to the cloud, and also pull data down from the cloud and use that within TBEST. The third item is a simplified and secure deployment. We'll actually go through this in the demo, but it's very simple to actually install and run TBEST 5. If you can recall, in TBEST 4.8, there was a lot of hoops to jump through. We've made it much more secure and simplified to deploy it. The next item is expand user access. So we wanted to make it available to not just the GIS Pro or the modeler. We want to make it available to everyone in the organization, have it easy to use and accessible. So a lot of those elements that I talked about with the GIS platform and collaboration, those are what bring together all these different users and make it usable to them. We also wanted to have continuity with previous TBEST versions, so that whenever you're using TBEST, you're actively, if you've used it before, you should be able to basically pick it up and start using it without too much change in what you would do before. But you'll just notice that the performance is better, it's more responsive, and the overall user experience is definitely improved. All right, so another main platform goal was the cloud. So we're already, over on the left, we have remote data sources that we've been using for quite a while to retrieve data from the Census Bureau, including the census, the 2020 census, the American Community Survey data, LEHD. We use that data to download it directly into TBEST and configure it for use in TBEST. We also use the Open Route Service API, which is an API that we use to construct walk sheds and bike sheds within TBEST, among other things. The TBEST data downloads, obviously, we make everything downloadable within TBEST. We use Esri base maps. We also, new to TBEST 5, is the use of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, QCEW, wage data. So we use this as a mean annual wage input for TBEST, and before we've used this information, but we've had to pull it and put it in a PDF. But now we're making it dynamic so that anywhere in the US can access that information directly from the BLS. The main point of the cloud interaction, though, has to be with the ArcGIS Online environment, where the data and the maps that you produce in TBEST and you can directly put into ArcGIS Online. And you can also pull data down into TBEST to obviously put it into a map, but also integrate it with your workflows, such as socioeconomic growth rates and Title VI analysis and operations analysis. So the data both goes up into ArcGIS Online, and we are able to pull it down and directly utilize it within the software. All right, so just an overview of the technology updates. So it's a new GIS engine. So we're now using ArcGIS Maps SDK for .NET, which is a small, fast runtime that deploys with TBEST. There's no other software that has to go on with it. It's a standalone runtime. We're also using, as a new database engine, SQLite and Esri Mobile Geodatabase. So before we were using Microsoft SQL Server and file geodatabases as our database format. But now basically everything is in SQLite because the Esri Mobile Geodatabase is a SQLite database. It just has the geodatabase schema inside of it. So really, we're all SQLite, which is very good. It's very quick and responsive and easy to work with, and doesn't require a third-party install of any Microsoft SQL Server. So the next item is familiar and streamlined UIs. We did update the graphics in TBEST, update the theming just to make it, a little more modern. We also are adapting to the scaling, especially for the HD displays. Before in TBEST, we didn't adapt very well when the scaling was set to greater than 100%. But now we can go up to 150% in scaling, and TBEST will operate just fine at that scaling level. In terms of performance, overall, the entire TBEST runs faster. There isn't anything that doesn't run faster. But even for model runtimes or overall 2 times faster using TBEST 5 versus TBEST 4.8. Okay, so some of the major changes we have and new features in TBEST are one is shared workspaces. Well, I mentioned this. This is a collaborative tool that we have to be able to create multi-user access to transit systems. And so this is something that we've worked on for a while and really known that we've needed to make sure that if you want to have for your agency a production workspace where all of your information is stored in one place and everyone can come to a single transit system and look up their information and access a production transit system, then you can do it with the workspace manager. You can also have workspaces that would be maybe departmental, such as service planning or strategic planning, or even GIS might have their own workspace or workspaces. You can do a project workspace. So if you're working on a TDP with teammates, you set up a workspace for that specific project and everyone can access it. You can also have local ones that are on your machine. But generally, these are workspaces are developed for the network environment. So they're on your network, right? They're not in the cloud. They're basically on shared network drives that would be their shared workspaces. So they're organizational, but they're not kind of managed on the cloud. They're managed on your shared network drives. So in the TBEST Explorer window, if you remember from TBEST 4.8, in TBEST Explorer, we have the transit systems, and then we now have the service planning, which is, this is the workspace that the transit systems list will be in. And so we can manage this workspace by clicking on this workspaces button, and it pops up the workspace manager. In that manager, we have a default workspace, and we can create workspaces. We can find ones that other folks have created within your organization and go look them up and connect to them. And there's lots of other tools that we'll actually show during the demonstration. But the idea here is this is a place where you can both organize your work and organize it amongst your organization, and those will be working with you on specific projects or in your department. Okay, the next item that we worked on and we wanted to really rebuild in a way was the transit network editing. And as many of you know, this can be the trickiest of all things that you know, transit in and of itself is a little bit tricky. So we tried to build this new network editor to consolidate the tools into a single toolbar, the network editing toolbar. So just in the graphic that we're looking at here, this is for Miami-Dade, and it's Route 14 eastbound. And so whenever you do activate a pattern and you're editing it, this toolbar will pop up on the map, and you also get a route statistics panel at the bottom. So this is a dynamic panel that as you're editing, it will show you statistics that might include the length of the route pattern, the number of stops, the spacing, the revenue service hours for weekday, Saturday, and Sunday, and other service metrics. It will also give you population and employment and some other Title VI variables that you might be interested in that are dynamically changed as you're editing the route. So as you're editing, adding stops, changing service, that panel will update for any of your edits so you can track how your edits are kind of impacting and you know, the overall service, and you know, how you might be measuring them against your own internal agency policies. So another item that we've added is segment endpoints. So I'm not sure how well you can see it in this graphic, but each of it along this route pattern, you have a green point that is the begin point of the route pattern, and you have a red point, which is the end point. And so along this, you will see additional points that are essentially, in this case, time points, this was imported from the GTFS, and TBEST will generally break at time points, the individual segments. So now within TBEST, you can see your time point locations. You can easily manage which segments are where, and all of this is connected to your list of your segments in your segments panel, so that you can easily tie in your list to what's in the map. We also wanted to make a simplified segment editing, which would basically disable the entire TBEST interface except for what you're editing. So you don't need to go anywhere else other than just digitizing a segment, adding stops, etc. So it just makes it a little bit simplified to edit segments. All right, the next major tool that we've added in TBEST 5 is the ArcGIS online integration. So we mentioned this as a cloud connection capability, where any and all TBEST maps that you would create, you can export that data and the map and the symbology associated with the map into ArcGIS Online for use. You know, you can share it out with the public. You can actually open it up in ArcGIS Pro if you have that available. So basically, you're kind of preserving as an export the data that's in TBEST into a map that you would then go in and share or modify in ArcGIS Pro for public consumption or other consumption or sharing within the organization. So basically, this graphic that we have showing is from Links in Orlando, and this is a map that's generated in TBEST. This is the Title VI analysis workflow support tool, the minority population distribution for the Links service area. And so this map is generated in TBEST, and then all we have to do is click this export map button, and then it will export that information out into ArcGIS Online. So here's the ArcGIS Online exported version of this. And again, it's all you need to do is really enter the name of the export map that you want to create, and it will push this data out into online. Not only do we have that capability, but we've integrated the TBEST, the ArcGIS line data that you can pull in that might be within your organization. It might be public information that's in ArcGIS Online, and directly integrate that into your TBEST analysis tools. such as your socioeconomic growth, might be TAZ data that is published online. I know that there are MPOs in Florida that do publish their TAZs to ArcGIS Online. You can pull that data in directly and then calculate your socioeconomic growth rates within TBEST using an ArcGIS Online data set. You can also use it for Title VI analysis, for operations analysis. Those workflow support tools will take in data directly from ArcGIS Online and then calculate more geographic analysis using polygon data sets that would come from ArcGIS Online. All right, another larger and major tool that we've developed since the last version, and we did have a version of bus stop balancing in the previous version, but it basically didn't have much of an interface in terms of being able to both visualize the stops that you would want to balance and also save them back to an owning TBEST scenario, so that not only can you work on balancing stops and evaluating them interactively, but you can save your changes back to a TBEST network scenario and then run your ridership estimation model based on the results of your bus stop balancing. So those two work together at this point, and some of the major updates in this, not only for the interface, but we've implemented a new tool to identify stop removal candidates based on your agency stop spacing policy. And that stop spacing policy might be related to population and employment densities. So we set up those relationships relative to the densities that you would want for each. And then it will identify based on your policy which would be removal candidates. And then that narrows the field. And then now you can kind of evaluate the population densities, minority population densities, other Title VI variables relative to each stop, and then decide which one do I want to remove it, and then save it back into TBEST. So it's it's kind of a full process of bus stop balancing that's now available in TBEST 5. Okay, so another new tool that we have is the TBEST Tools GitHub repository. So I mentioned programmers earlier in the slides. And so in previous versions of TBEST, we did have TBEST scripting, and the source code for the ridership estimation model was available, but it was installed with TBEST. So all of that kind of went to your local install of TBEST 4.8. Well, we didn't want to do that anymore. We wanted to bring that out into a more modern collaborative environment. So we put everything into the to GitHub, and this TBEST Tools GitHub repository. You can access the source code for the current TBEST 5 ridership estimation model that's provided by FDOT, and you can clone the repository and run the code locally, and you can debug the model code. You can build and deploy TBEST add-ins and models using the instructions that are available in the GitHub repository. So I'm interested in people starting to dig in and use this a little bit, and any feedback that would be available. I think you can probably feedback via GitHub. So that'd be interesting to hear and see what people are doing there as well. So other improvements for TBEST 5, we've added data field aliases for all of the fields within TBEST. So if you remember, if you did data exports out into ArcMap in the past in TBEST 4.8, you would look at the data and it would have more cryptic field names, but we've added aliases to all of the field names, so they're very easy to read inside of ArcGIS Online or in other formats. The workflow support tool maps, those used to open in ArcMap, and we've converted those all to open inside of inside of TBEST itself. So no more ArcMap maps for the workflow support tools. The mean annual wage lookup, I mentioned this earlier, and this is just a graphic of it right here, where you're able to look up mean annual wage high performance base maps. Everything is very quick with the Esri base maps, so you'll appreciate that. And there are many more features. The identify is different. The map control is different. All those things had to change with the swapping out of ArcMap. So you'll notice a lot of differences as you're rolling through and learning this. And of course, we're available for technical support as you're going through. All right, some other changes from 4.8 that are implemented in 5. And the TBEST distribution files, the .tds files, when you would export a transit system out into this TDS format, we've changed that to .tbest. So when you export out a transit system from TBEST 5, it will be a .tbest file name. We are not supporting local file geodatabase or shapefile exports anymore. They're all mobile geodatabase only exports for the local data exports. You can still export into ArcGIS online. The network scenario employment data source. So it used to be that we would allow kind of referencing a TAZ shapefile into the network scenario as an employment data source. But that was really a legacy kind of reference that wasn't really needed anymore because we have the LEHD data that's readily available. So we have eliminated that as an option. So just remember that going forward. You would also, if you were configuring data outside of Florida, you would have to input a local spatial reference. But all of TBEST now operates in the same spatial reference, a geographic spatial reference. So no need to input any local spatial references. Some terminology changes. TBEST scenario from 4.8 is now called a TBEST network scenario. The workflow support tools COA tool is now called the operations analysis tool. And the TBEST land use model 2023, which was the last iteration of the 4.8 models, is now land use model 5.0. And the socioeconomic data support data terminology we were using in 4.8 is now socioeconomic data packages. So all of those kind of play out in the user guide. I would definitely recommend reviewing the user guide. It's been updated for 5, and all of these changes play out in there as well. All right, so let's talk about the Florida 2025 data release. So this was configured using the 2020 Census Geography and Demographics, the 2023 American Community Survey 5-year estimates. So if you're familiar, the 2023 data just came out in December. So we've incorporated that in the data package and all of the transit systems that are downloadable, the Florida transit systems that are downloadable within TBEST. The 2022 LEHD employment data for the state, and the statewide 2024 Florida parcel land use data. So the 2024 transit system updates include the spring 2024 GTFS data, the data package for Florida 2024, all of the transit systems that are downloadable in TBEST for Florida were built using this most recent data package. Each one of the transit systems for the base scenario includes fares, transfer stations, and cost data. The ridership forecasting, all of it references the TBEST land use model 5.0, which is the new model structure with TBEST 5. All right, so the data release, all of the data release for Florida is available within TBEST. You just go to the file downloads and you're able to get to the 30 different Florida transit systems that are pre-configurable and downloaded. The Florida 2024 socioeconomic data package is also directly downloadable along with the TBEST land use model 5. Basically, the model structure installs with TBEST, but if you ever delete it or need to re-download it, you can do that directly within TBEST. All right, so we mentioned the TBEST 5 deployment. We wanted a simplified installation where there's no ArcMap or SQL Server. We wanted a Windows 11. It does not have cross-platform OS support, so it's just a Windows application. It does require .NET Framework 4.81, which is normally pre-installed, but you probably want to check with your IT folks to make sure that that it is installed on the machine you want to run TBEST. We have digitally signed all the runtime files to comply with corporate software security policies. So this is an important part of the deployment of TBEST to make sure that it will get past the Microsoft security and it's secure from any kind of hacking of the files. So all of this is pre-signed, including the install itself. So it needs to be installed by a local administrator, or it can be installed via any corporate software management system. So if your organization does deployment of software through a corporate source, then it is compliant with that method. So overall, we wanted a smaller footprint, so it's a much smaller install, it's secure, and it's a seamless user startup where it's basically you are logging into your ArcGIS Online account, and that's how you would license it and you start to utilize TBEST. All right, so speaking of Esri licensing, when you launch TBEST 5, you will log into your own organizational ArcGIS Online account. And to get the full functionality out of TBEST, you will need to have an ArcGIS Pro basic, standard, or advanced license attached to your login. And that's, I think that's standard practice across the industry. One of the very new things that we have, and we actually just released this earlier today, where we have if you don't have an ArcGIS Pro license, you can still run in TBEST Lite mode. So this allows you to not have a license. You still need to have an ArcGIS Online account. It can be a public account. It can be an organizational account with just viewer privileges. But then you can still launch TBEST. You can open up, your network scenarios. You can create reports. You can do market analysis. All of those things you just can't edit in the TBEST Lite mode. So it's still a great way to share TBEST out. Anyone can then, if we're talking about a workspace environment, you can deploy TBEST to different places. They don't actually have to have, an ArcGIS Pro license in order to run it. They can get running with it and just try it out. And if they want to do editing, or if they need to do editing, you can tie, a license to their login and start using it that way. Also note that TBEST 5 does not store or access your ArcGIS Online account credentials. All of this goes through the Esri authorization. So we only get back to internally to TBEST what your license level is, basically. So we don't capture any of that or store it. All right, so TBEST 5.0 deployment relative to ArcGIS Pro. And in most cases, you don't need ArcGIS Pro installation and it's not required. In some cases, it's optional, and in one use case, it's required. So the optional is that if you want to use basically the ArcGIS Pro Python engine to create spatial index or improve spatial data processing performance within TBEST, whenever you're creating transit systems or you're creating socioeconomic data packages, it will look for ArcGIS Pro. If it's there, it will create these spatial indexes. If it's not there, it will just skip it and not create them. So it just is a little bit of a performance boost within TBEST if you have it installed. It's not required. The required part is that we have a legacy data conversion tool within TBEST that will actually convert your TBEST 4.8 data into TBEST 5. And so for this tool, it requires that Pro is installed. And so that is the only case. And really, that tool is just needed for those of you that are converting maybe a large amount of work that you've done in the past for a TDP, and you want to bring that forward into TBEST 5, you can use this conversion tool to easily convert that data and bring it into 5, and then you can then archive off and not necessarily need TBEST 4.8 going forward. Okay. All right, so one of the other items that we wanted to provide is deployment updates. So as new versions of TBEST come online and are posted to the TBEST website, what you'll see is this update available button. You can see it circled in red on the upper right corner. That it will appear when there's an update that's available. And if you click that button, it will bring you to this check for updates screen, where if you are an admin that's logged in or you have admin privileges on your machine, it will allow you to install a new version. You can see that it's down at the bottom. It will also give you all of the release notes that are coming with the update that you're going to install. If you click the button, it will install the new version and restart it, and you're up and running. If you're not an admin, it won't give you the install new version button. You'll get a link to the website and a note saying to, contact your IT administrator. There's to download and install the update. So this was introduced with version 5.038, which just came out a few days ago. We've actually posted a new update earlier today, as I mentioned. But so you won't necessarily see that button if you've installed prior to then. But with any new updates, as you install TBEST going forward, you will see that button for all users. All right, so I mentioned the TBEST legacy data migration tool. So this is where, in terms of a continuity approach, where we can make sure we're leveraging all the effort, all the work that we went into creating the TBEST 4.8 data, we can bring that forward into TBEST 5, and that includes transit systems, socioeconomic data packages, workflow support tool result sets, all those data that you created back in 4.8. You can simply access this tool and hit the convert button, and we'll convert it and put it into your TBEST 5.0. The original 4.8 data is not altered during this process, and so it just goes as a copy into 5.0. You do need to have TBEST 4.8, TBEST 5, and ArcGIS Pro all installed while you're doing this conversion. So this is this legacy migration. It just requires all those components to be together. It does not require ArcMap though, so just keep that in mind. You don't have to license ArcMap for this. I know a lot of folks don't even have ArcMap anymore or any licensing for it, so you don't need it for this process. All right, so when you're converting a transit system out of TBEST 4.8, it will retain the ridership estimation model validation. However, it is recommended that you revalidate it in TBEST 5. All the network scenarios that you would convert over will within the transit systems will automatically reference themselves to the TBEST land use model 5. So during this migration or legacy data migration of a transit system, it will update that model reference to TBEST land use model 5. And there's a lot of information in the user guide about this, section 2.5. So as you're doing this and you're embarking on this, definitely use that as a reference. Okay, so that's great. Let's go to a live demonstration here, and I will stop sharing and then share. Okay, hopefully everyone can see my desktop. And so I think we're going to start from the very beginning here. We want to just kind of take you through the process of installing TBEST and accessing it. So I'll just pull over the TBEST website, and just so you know that the user guide is available here. You can just click this, takes you to the user guide. The user guide is also available from directly within TBEST. You can access it from there as well. You have training resources here. We're going to be updating this very soon with information on the new training that will be happening in the next couple of months. The What's New in TBEST 5 is here, and the TBEST 5 download itself is here. And just so everyone knows that you have to log in, and the only thing that you have to log in for to download is the install file for TBEST 5. So just, keep that in mind. If you're unable, or you get to this, this screen, it says you don't have permission to download that file. It's only because you haven't logged in. So you just need to log in, and then the install will be available to you. So once you download it, very easy to download. I have the latest install right here. I don't have TBEST installed on my machine, so I just want to install it and run through that process. All right, so here is the setup wizard. And a couple things to note here is the installer will guide you through it. Please note that after the install completes successfully, administrators must set the user's account permissions to modify on the TBEST data folder, which is CTBEST 5.0. So just remember that after the install, you're not necessarily fully done. You still need to set the permissions on this data folder and have your administrator do that for you. Okay, so let's hit next. And just the basic, here's where TBEST will be installed. It will be installed for everyone that uses this machine. Hit next. And yes, we're ready. So whenever it begins, it goes to this user account control TBEST 5. The publisher is Service Edge Solutions. That is our company working for FDOT. So that's just basically the certification, the certificate for this is under our name. But if you go to show more details, the Florida Department of Transportation is, who owns this, right? So don't be alarmed if you see this. It's just the company name. So just hit yes. All right, and that's it. So if we hit close here, we are all ready. And should place a link for a shortcut for TBEST on the desktop. So if I double click, we're using version 5.39. That's what we want to use. And we're automatically prompted for our ArcGIS online login. So this is how we come into TBEST. Basically, every time you open TBEST, you will need to sign in, because it's signing into your organization, not only for your licensing, but for your ArcGIS online account information. So anything that's specific to your login for ArcGIS Online, that will also play out in TBEST as well. So I'll just log in here. I'll take this off screen. Okay. All right, so we're ready to go with TBEST 5. All right. So a couple of changes just in the Explorer window. If some folks have used this before, so they're familiar. So the transit systems folder is still here. You will notice that it has this default to the right of it. That is the workspace. It's the default workspace that you're working in. We also have a change. The socioeconomic data packages is listed here. We removed the distribution files folder from TBEST Explorer. We also have a folder for ridership estimation models. So this is the default install, comes with TBEST Land Use Model 5, which is here. And we also have our workflow support tools that are available here as well. All these tools are wizard-driven tools that you can use when you build your transit systems and network scenarios. Okay, great. So let's start off talking about workspaces. The transit system, data management for local. So if we basically, if we want to start managing our workspaces, we can go to this TBEST 5.0, and we have the ability to see that this workspace, the default workspace, is in our default directory. So essentially, this is how you would operate if you relate it to 4.8. Just in the default work environment. But we're able to create new workspaces to work in. So, basically what we want to do is create a new workspace, and we will call it Gatorville TDP. And the path. We can just set the path to be our a local drive. And so you can navigate here as well, but we'll just set it to our TBEST workspaces. And what it does is it creates the workspace, which is our Gatorville TDP. It automatically connects to it, which over here now you'll see Gatorville TDP is active. And so we can then start working within this workspace. So one of the things that we can do is we can directly download data from FDOT published data. So to do that, we can go to our file downloads and go to transit systems. So in this list, we have all of the data that's been published by FDOT for the transit systems in Florida. There are 30 here, and they're all pre-configured and up to date as far as the networks, spring of 2024. So clearly there would be some updates that would need to come in through your GTFS that you would perform locally. And that's actually something we'll do here in this webinar. So let's click on this Gatorville training. So this is actually what we use for the training, one of the transit systems. So we'll download that. All right, great. So we say, okay, we can close this list. And now we have our Gatorville transit system that's active in our list for the Gatorville TDP. So we have this set up so that we can start working with this directly inside of this TDP folder. And if this was a shared folder, we could provide this same folder location to anyone that would be working on this as well, and they can do a find a workspace. So let's work through that and see what that might look like. So if we go again to our workspaces, and let's say that I've been given a folder location where I need to look up a workspace. So if I go to find an existing workspace, so on my E drive, which is a shared network drive, we can go to this TBEST workspaces, and we have service planning here. So someone else has created this. Well, actually, I created it, but for the purposes of our demonstration, someone else created it. And we have a service planning. So we can connect to that and add it to our list of service of connections. And you can see that there's already this Gatorville service planning transit system that's created there. And I'm able to connect to it and start working with it. Now, one of the good things about this too is that, let's say you have lots of users that are interested in making edits, right? And you don't really want to step on each other's toes and start editing, although TBEST won't really let you do that. But if you want to check it out to just be sure, there is a checkout function. So I can check this out, and now it's checked out by me. And what happens is whenever anyone else goes to connect to this or use this particular workspace, they won't be able to access the transit systems. And they can come in and see that I have this checked out and then know that, hey, I'm working on it. And then once I'm done, I can just check it back in. And now it's back open to everyone else to do their editing or to just access the data in the transit systems. Okay. All right, so let's switch back to the default workspace, and I just double click on it, and you see that it's now connected to the default workspace. Default is up here as well. So that's your connection between these workspaces. You can just toggle back and forth, create new ones, or find existing ones. All right. I will note that you can, two options for deleting them. You can remove the workspace reference so that all it does is removes the reference. It doesn't delete the workspace, or you can fully delete the workspace. So those two options are available. Just make sure you know the difference between the two. Okay, so let's do start looking at building some data and migrating TBEST 4.8 data into TBEST 5. All right, so I'm just going to click on this new and go to transit system. So this is a newer kind of feature here within TBEST 5 that kind of point you in the right direction as to what's available for you to do. And so there are elements of this are, if to create a transit system, TBEST requires that the service area socioeconomic data be developed within a package. However, no packages currently exist on the local machine. So you need to select from the following options to start working with a transit system. You can download an existing package. You can create a new SD data package. You can also convert a package from 4.8. You can download a transit system. You can import a transit system from a TBEST file and convert a 4.8 transit system. So this is the one we're going to start with. So if I click on this button, I'll go to the legacy data conversion tool. So what this provides you is a list of TBEST 4.8 transit systems that are currently on this machine. So these aren't 5.0, these are 4.8 lists that we're looking at. And we want to select this Bayway, which is Panama City in Florida. And I'm just going to hit convert. And it's going to go through the process of converting it. It can take a little bit of time. So we'll just kind of move this out of the way and keep working inside of TBEST. This actually runs as a separate executable. So you can see down on the task manager that, or the taskbar, that it's running in its own executable. So we can continue on and do some other things in TBEST. Mainly the next thing is to download the an existing SE data package. So again, from this UI, we can go to just download this Florida 2024 SE data. We had talked about this. This is the latest release of the SE data for Florida, and hit the download button. So that's a pretty substantial download. So that'll take just a minute to execute. So our next step will be kind of thinking about how we would want to maybe work with data that's out of state, even relative to TBEST to Florida, right? So if you're crossing the Alabama line into Florida from Pensacola over to Mobile, what that might look like. So I just got a notification that the Bayway was successfully imported. So I can just click OK there and bring that back up. So so when it does convert, it gives you the processing of the files that it's processing, the file geodatabase, the tbest.mdf, which was the SQL Server database. All of those are converted now into TBEST 5, and it's said it completed successfully. Also notice that it says that the scenario references a TAZ employment data, but this option has been removed. So just pay attention to that. If it does reference TAZ data, it will remove that reference going into TBEST 5. All right, so that's great. So we converted the Bayway. We can close that. And I think our SE data downloaded successfully, so that's good. So, so we can close this, and we'll close this for now. And you can see that we have our Florida 2024 socioeconomic data package. So because that was running in a separate EXE, we are going to need to right-click on the transit systems and hit refresh. So when we do that, now our Bayway is visible, and we're able to use that inside of TBEST. All right. So so just thinking about the socioeconomic data packages and creating those, right? So one of the bigger improvements that we've made in TBEST over the last several years is making this much easier to pull in SE data from the census and from LEHD, and also configuring the parcel land use data templates. So to create a new package, we just right-click on that, the packages folder. And, you know, in a setup that I might see would be plausible to me would be if the Escambia County wanted to basically build some service over and connect over into the Mobile area from Pensacola, they would need to have the socioeconomic data from Alabama included in their transit system. So one of the ways to do that is to configure this from here. So this gives you the ability to select states and then counties from those states. So if we select Florida and Escambia County, and add that to our county process list, we can then switch over to Alabama and select Baldwin County and Mobile County. Right, Mobile. I'm missing it. There it is. All right. Okay, so now when we would run this, so maybe this is like Florabama. And so we would probably want to include the parcel data template files for 2025. So what this will do, it will create a parcel data template files in mobile geodatabase format that goes along with this data package that after this package is created, there's instructions in the user guide. If you're outside of Florida, you would need to kind of configure that parcel data for your local area. FDOT makes the parcel data available for all counties in the state, so no need to do that for Florida. We have the most up-to-date data. But if you're dealing with something outside of Florida and you're going into Alabama, you would need to have some parcel data over on the other side of the border. All right, so what I would do is I would just hit create package. This would download all of the necessary data directly from the Census Bureau, directly from the LEHD data, create the template files and package it all up into a TBEST package that you can use to create a transit system. So that takes a minute to run or two, or maybe even three. So I won't do that this time, but I just wanted to run through this setup so you have an initial idea of how that works. Okay. All right. All right, so all right, so I think a couple of things that we want to do once we have brought data in from TBEST 4.8, this Bayway data. So this is a transit system. I just want to look at the properties for it and look at the dates. So the employment year is 2020, the census is 2020, and the parcel is 2022. So this is older data, and then we certainly have more up-to-date data that's available to us in the Florida 2024 data package. So we want to update this. So we can right click on this, go to socioeconomic data updates and import from a package. So we want to select our Florida 2024. Bay County is available to us in this list. So we have Bay County, but if you wanted more counties, you can certainly do that here. And then you can just click OK and it will run the update to then update this transit system with the latest SE data available from FDOT. Okay. And it's ready to go. Everything has been updated. So just to confirm that, I'll right click on the Bayway, go to properties. And yes, my employment year is now 2022, census 23, parcel 2024. Fantastic. So we're moving forward. We have up-to-date data. So let's drill into the Bayway transit system. Notice that this used to be just scenarios as the folder name. Now it's network scenarios, just so we're clear, as there is a difference between parcel scenarios and network scenarios. So we want to be clear about that. All right, so we have an April 2023 network that was in the original 4.8 data, but obviously we have spring 2025 data that's now available that we may want to bring in. So what we want to do is just make a copy of this network scenario, and we're going to call it spring 2025. And we're going to change the forecast year. Instead of 2024, it will be 2025. And we have a mean annual wage lookup here. So I mentioned the Bureau of Labor Statistics earlier in the presentation. This is where you would access that information through this link. So by default, you will see data from Florida being populated in this list, and we have our Bay County right here. What you'll notice is that you have data from all states that are available and from different wage years. So even as a simple lookup for how wage has changed over the last several years within any one county or series of counties, this is a great way to just kind of tool around and look at that information. So if we go back to our 2023, it loads it back in. Now, if I just select Bay County, actually I can just double click on it. It will automatically put that number into my mean annual wage, and my lookup is complete, and I'm ready to copy this April 2023 to spring 2025, and I have my new scenario that's listed here. All right, so the next thing we would want to do is because now we have all of our most up-to-date SE data, we're ready to bring in a newer GTFS and newer network into this scenario. So we would just right-click on the scenario and go to our GTFS import export tools and import routes from GTFS. Look up the GTFS, which should be on my desktop. Yes, so here is the latest Baytown Trolley or Bayway GTFS. And actually, this was downloaded from FTIS. So those of you that are in Florida, it's a great resource for getting GTFSs for the whole state. And this is maintained by FDOT as well. So I downloaded it from FTIS. All right, so we get the service IDs that are relative to this for weekdays, Saturday, and Sunday. My normal procedure here is just to pick a day that is a representative day. And so let's go with March 21st. That's around the first day of spring. And we don't really need to pick a day for this just because there's only one service ID. So we don't necessarily need to pick a day. All right. So what you'll see is that it's loaded all the routes that are in the GTFS, and it's compared those with the routes that are in that TBEST network scenario. And basically, it's a one-to-one match. So Route 1 exists in both places, so it's going to overwrite it on the way in, and the same with all of the other routes. Now, what I typically like to do when performing this is click on this Show TBEST Routes Not in GTFS. And if you do that, it will give you a listing of all the routes that exist in the TBEST network, but are not in the GTFS, and then will allow you to remove them. So it's just a full kind of cleansing of the network, removing any routes that are no longer in service, and then adding those that are in service to kind of fully make sure you're accurate with your network representation. So I'm going to select all and hit import routes and just say, yes, I do want to do that. What you'll notice is that the GTFS import is definitely faster than it was in TBEST 4.8. Yep, it's already done. And when you're ready, you can just say yes. There are no socioeconomic growth rates. One of the new things for TBEST 5 is that the growth rates are not set. On the way in, it's going to prompt you when you're opening a scenario that do you want to update them, and just say yes. And so it will bring up the growth rates, and you can just take the defaults that are already embedded in this this transit system in this network scenario and say yes. So it will apply those, and now we're open and ready to go in our new network scenario environment. So our spring 2025 scenario is open. It now says on the top, so this is all new to TBEST 5. It gives the name of the transit system in this scenario. It gives that this is a network scenario. The close button for the scenario is here, right? So this used to be up in the upper right corner. It's been moved to here so that it just kind of ties everything together. Many of the same functions are here that were here in TBEST 4.8. So just simple things such as selecting routes and having them show up on the map are all here. And so I can create a route service report very easily. I can create a route socioeconomic report very easily. It just takes a second. And I won't go over all the details. I just want to show you that these are still available. You all can, there's lots of training on all of these, but the fact that they're here and available to you in TBEST 5 is just speaking to the continuity between the old version and this version, even though all of the kind of underlying technology has changed. All right, so a few things that I want to show you pretty quickly. So basically, one of the different features here is we have little shortcuts on the right-hand side where we can toggle our menu toolbars. So I have the mobility area toolbar here, and what I want to do is I want to generate a 10-minute walkshed around all of the routes for the Bayway transit system. So I'm going to select walkshed. I'm going to switch from distance to time and make it a 10-minute walkshed. And because I have them all selected, all the routes, I can use this tool, create market sheds from selected features, and then correct the market shed from selected routes. And it's very quick to generate a 10-minute walkshed around all the stops on all the selected routes. So what I want to do is quickly just create a socioeconomic market analysis of this result. So I'll go to my analysis on my mobility areas toolbar, go to socioeconomic summary, and here is the total population that is within a 10-minute walk access to all the stops on the Bayway system. Here's the households. There's some minority Hispanic LEPs, so some Title VI variables that are available in the default profile, the number of jobs, the density of jobs, et cetera, right? So very quick and easy way to get this information. There are data profiles. If you want to go specifically to Title VI, you can certainly do that. Okay, so let's go and over way on the right on this line, there is this open mobility areas socioeconomic summary map. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so here is the result. So all of that, the walkshed that we created, this is the full market, and then the distribution of minority population within that market. So you notice that is also quick and responsive coming up. And what I want to show you out of this is, yes, the data is mapped, but the export capability here is to the map data. You can go out to ArcGIS Online or to a local data export or mobile geodatabase. So for any map in TBEST, and it could be the network scenario map, any map you would generate, you have this option to export it out to ArcGIS Online or local. So we'll say online. So this is the ArcGIS Online data export basically generation form. And you have the option to select the ArcGIS Online content type, which by default will be feature layer. You can also generate this as a map, but feature layer tends to be the better option here in most cases, especially if you want to reintegrate that data back into TBEST. So place in an ArcGIS Online folder. So whatever folders that you have access to on ArcGIS Online, you can place this resulting feature layer in that folder. So we'll just call this, this is Bayway walk access. And notice that it automatically creates the tags and a description here. You obviously can edit these if you wish. The option is to open the export in ArcGIS Online, so that's what we'll do. So it'll go in and create the content, generate this out into ArcGIS Online, and then open it up in the browser when we're done. Okay, great. So it finished, and you can see that we now have our map that's in ArcGIS Online. So all the data that we had locally in TBEST is now generated into ArcGIS Online, and you have full control over this information here. You can show the table for the data. So 2,500 records. You'll notice that in this data set, it has, I mentioned earlier that the aliases are in the field names now. So all these data have, information on exactly what you're looking at in the data set. So obviously you can share this map out with to the public or within an organization. You can open up in ArcGIS Pro once it's up here. And the repository is for you to do what you wish and change symbology and work with it here in ArcGIS Online as a data export. Okay, so we'll leave that and we'll go to our close this, and we can close this for now. And what we want to do is add data, right? So we want to add data from ArcGIS Online. So I'm going to use my map control, and I'm going to add data in from ArcGIS Online. And by default, when you open it, it's going to read your organization name. I'm with Service Edge Solutions. It has ArcGIS Online portal layers. So these are the layers that I've created that are available within my organization. I can also enter a feature service URL. If I click on these, it will show me the thumbnail and the owner and when it was created. You can also search for online public layers. So if I search for Panama City, I can do that, hit go, and I get a listing of different layers that are available for Panama City. I actually want to use this Commission Districts 2022, so I'm going to add that as a layer. All right, great. So super. You can see that it added it to my map control. It also added it into my my map itself. So I'm going to go ahead and clear off the walkshed, and I want to use this data now to create a mobility area. So, so one of the things you can do with the mobility area tools and with the ArcGIS Online layer that I just added is to use this polygon feature. And there's a select polygon features as an input to the mobility area. When I click that, I get a selection layer option where you can add different layers or remove this current layer. So we currently have commission districts as our target selection layer. So all I have to do is just kind of drag a box. I actually just want the one. So this is, I think, Ward 2. And so that's really all I wanted, was to be able to select that. And now actually I can just remove this layer. And now I have my mobility area that's readily available. I can save this as Ward 2. All right, so now I have Ward 2 saved as a mobility area. And then from here, I can do a lot of things. The mobility area service summary, so I can show very quickly what routes are within this particular ward. And more importantly, what their performance is, what their the percent of the system service is. 18% of the overall service is within this ward. The operating cost for a weekday is about $2,000, and other statistics about it. I can also very easily, just close this as well, go to the land use summary and look at trip activity within this ward. So with the parcel data that we have, we can look at the trips. These are person trips. So this is actually the activity levels based on IT trip generation rates at each parcel. So the size of the parcel is relative to the trips that are generated out of it. And so it's very easy to visualize this and use it. And if you can imagine this relative to even your mobility on demand areas where you're looking at the actual trip generation by parcel and location, it would be helpful for you to determine where your pockets of activity are and where you might be wanting to locate some of your services relative to MOD. So I would just close this, and I can clear this off the map with this clear button. So now that's gone. If I wanted to bring it back, I can just come over to TBEST Explorer. I can double click on it, comes back in, clear back off. Okay, so let me minimize this, and I want to wrap up here in just a minute. But basically, I want to show you the network editing environment. So I've mentioned this in the beginning. So whenever I go to activate a route pattern for editing, it now will pop up this network editing toolbar. It will also pop up the route statistics panel at the bottom, and I have the full kind of edit environment available. You also notice that in my list of segments, so these are the segments that make up this Route 1 northbound pattern. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 6. So each of the segment endpoints are coordinated with the list here of segments. So it's very easy to kind of make sure you see the sequencing in this list relative to what's in the map. So I mentioned too here that you can quickly add new segments. So if I wanted to add a new segment into this map from, let's say, this West Highway 390, I want to extend the service for this particular segment, I can pretty easily do that just by using this shortest path tool. And you notice that we have this new exit edit mode button. So basically everything is grayed out once you're in this edit mode, and you can't do anything else other than edit. So I can come in and just start using my shortest path tool and come down through here, and I can pan down a little bit, and I can set waypoints along the way. So it will take the shortest path from my waypoint to my endpoint. And when I'm ready, I can just double click and it will add that segment in. So you notice that now this is a 2 and this is a 1 because it knows the sequencing and this of the segments and the stops. So it adds these in sequence, and it captures any stops that are existing in the network along this route that are on the right-hand side of it. So very easy to do this. Once I'm done with this, I can just edit the exit mode. And one other things to show is that you can, when you select one of the segments, you can go into edit the vertices. So, this is a new, this has changed a little bit from TBEST 4.8. So I wanted to make sure that you kind of took note of it. So basically, wherever you are in this, you can start to realign this this particular network segment. So all I have to do is kind of hover over one of these points. These are vertices, these are midpoints, and I can just basically click and hold and drag, and it will move these to the new alignment that I want. And I'm just doing this very generically. There are other ways of doing this that would use the roadway network, but this is, a rough end of it. When I'm done, I just hit edit exit mode. Well, good to go. We have a new alignment for that. And also for the panel here, you're seeing the revenue service trips based on the weekday, Saturday, and Sunday. You can get to the service editor here. So if you need to make changes to the service, you can quickly add trips. And as I'm adding trips, you might be able to see, not enough space, sorry, that the service is changing. So I can just save this and it will update my revenue service trips here. If I click this button, it will then show me the population and jobs and percent minority and low income and densities for population and employment along this route pattern. So all of this is dynamic. If I were to add stops in, remove stops, these numbers would change. So if I just go and delete this new segment, you'll see the length changes, the population changes, all those will change once I delete this segment. And when I'm done, I can just save it, and I could run the TBEST ridership estimation model on it. I can run additional analysis. I can run bus stop balancing on this. All of those tools are kind of available, and I think once we get to the final or through the training coming up very soon, you'll be able to see all these things work together. I would encourage you to look at the user guide, and I think that's all for the demo if we want to answer some questions.
Oh, thank you, Rodney, for the great presentation. As the Slides. Let me get those slides back up real quick. There were a couple of questions that were submitted during your presentation. The first question said, can you export an ArcGIS Enterprise to an ArcGIS Enterprise portal?
Potentially. It depends on how it's set up, and I'd have to look into what the API will allow you for the runtime, but it's definitely possible. I'd have to look into that a little bit more.
Great, thank you. Here's another one. This is kind of a little bit longer. It says, what if I deleted TBEST 4.8 but kept all my previous scenarios and any other data files on my computer? Will TBEST 5.0 be able to identify those files in order to convert them?
You'll need to reinstall TBEST 4.8, and basically you don't need ArcMap. The tougher part of that is the ArcMap part. So you just reinstall TBEST 4.8 and then it will see them. So the data is still there. You just need basically the registry entries as to where the data resides. And once you have that from your install, it will pick them up and you can pull them over into TBEST 5.
Great, thank you. There's somebody asking about the trainings. I don't know if you have a tentative schedule or when that schedule will be made available. Is there any additional information you can provide about those workshops?
Yes, it will be in spring 2025. So I would estimate in the April timeframe, April, May, something like that. But definitely we'll put more information in both on the website, and we'll also send out an email to all the TBEST subscribers to the website and send out an email with that information.
This other question comes in and says, what is the benefit of using it over stops? Could you please compare that?
Yeah, I think that's a bigger comparison depending on what you would want to get out of it. So, stops obviously is for, the FTA funds it. It is their model for doing new starts and small starts. So certainly, if you're in the realm of doing something like that, you would certainly use it. But TBEST is definitely a visual tool. It has a lot of tools in it, including the network editing, and all of that integrates directly into the ridership estimation model. And a lot of times I recommend that, you can run both. There's nothing stopping you necessarily to, even if you develop the networks in TBEST, with your GTFS export capability, you can develop a network in TBEST, export it to GTFS, and put that GTFS into stops. And that would, basically, you could then run the TBEST model and the stops model using the same data.
Great, thank you. Can we import existing ridership into TBEST?
Yes, you can. You can import at the route level. You'll need at least that for your model validation. But you can also import stop level APC data through the GTFS. So there is a file format, a GTFS file format that's for TBEST only. It's just for a TBEST data format that you can add into your GTFS that you're importing. And if it's populated with your APC data, it will bring that data into TBEST. So that file format is available in the user guide, and you just need to work with your APC vendor to get the data into that format. And yes, you can is the answer.
This next question sort of is a follow-up to that question. Does TBEST estimate ridership for mobility on demand?
It does not. It does not do that. But it does allow you to evaluate any, like I showed with our mobility areas, the trip potential in any geography, and evaluate the markets and the service in terms of fixed route service that might exist within a mobility on demand area. But no, it does not allow you to do that. And so that's certainly something we're thinking about, and we'll see where that goes in the future.
Is this is there any possibility to use this program in any city around the world if the data is available?
Yes, in a way. It's really integrated with the US very well. And obviously with the census data being the biggest part of that. So when you do create a socioeconomic data package, that data just comes out into mobile geodatabases and text files or CSV files. And you can work to massage your data into that format, right? So it might be a little bit of work. So anywhere in the world, there's obviously census data everywhere. It would just take some work to put your data into the TBEST data package format. After that, everything else would work just fine. It's really just that source SE data in the package that you would need to format and work on getting that into your data from somewhere else in the world into that format.
Okay, Rodney, it doesn't look like there's any more questions, but I did drop the evaluation for today's session, as well as it's on the screen. We do ask that you take a few minutes to complete the session evaluation, as the feedback does provide us with opportunities for additional training topics, or some if you'd like to provide some additional information to Rodney and or Tara today. So with that, Rodney, I'm going to give you one additional time, or if you have any additional closing comments before we close up.
Yeah, I just think that this is just a big change for TBEST in general. It just makes it much lighter and easier to use for lots of people in the organization, especially with the TBEST Lite, where anyone can use that even without an ArcGIS Pro license. You can get in and evaluate transit data and make reports and evaluate your markets. So I think that's a great addition along with the integration with ArcGIS Online and all of the performance improvements. I think everyone will enjoy it.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. Tara's contact information is provided on the screen. So again, thank you on behalf of the Florida Department of Transportation. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar, and we'll see you all real soon. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.